Good morning. Hope you're all well. I'm feeling absolutely shattered this morning, to be honest with you. Had a good night's sleep, but it's not the best having to sleep with a fan on in your face all night. So, yeah, it's start of another day, really. Last day before the weekend for me, so that's all good. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Brexit. And as I heard on the news yesterday, it's been 5 years since the UK voted to get out of the EU, and all the repercussions that's had as a result. Look, I'm going to talk from my point of view, because the world point of view, or the UK point of view, is well known, but it has affected people in very different ways. At the time of the vote, I was living in Spain, and to be honest with you, I never thought that Brexit itself would end up the way it has. And for people like me, expats living abroad in Europe, it was the worst of all outcomes. So let me explain a little bit. After the vote for the UK leaving Europe, I returned back to the UK. My mother was unwell. Daryl's mother was also unwell in Australia. So we kind of went our separate ways just for a short amount of time, just to be with our respective parents. In the meantime, I lost my residencia in Spain because I was out of the country too long. And so when eventually everything sort of cleared up with Daryl's mother, and unfortunately my mother died, I would have liked to have gone back to live in mainland Spain, but I couldn't. Well, I could. I mean, I could have bought a house, I could have stayed there for 90 days a year, but literally, I couldn't. I couldn't fend for myself, I couldn't get a job, I couldn't work. It was just impossible. So of course, you have to have a plan B. Now, my plan B was obviously staying in the UK. I was living with my aunt at the time, and I literally had to change course. I didn't want to be in the UK. I certainly didn't want to stay there, but it was the only option open to me at that point. I've since realised, and I've since been told, that the expat community in Spain itself also suffering from the same difficulties. Because of course, when the UK left Europe, a lot of the rights that pensioners, for example, had no longer existed. They didn't have the same rights to healthcare that they would have had before. And in truth, a lot of people, British expats, were living a little bit under the radar, so they hadn't officially become a resident, which you should legally do after a short period of time. So these people were kind of left high and dry, really. And the exodus from Spain was huge. When I look at it now, and I think to myself, what on earth were we doing voting for this ridiculous thing? But it was all based on a lie. So, you know, people like me, the average person in the street, believed what they were being told by the likes of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. We just believed them. And it was a lie. Everything was made up to get our votes. The sad thing is, I mean, people like Boris Johnson, etc., it doesn't matter to them whether we're in or Europe or out of Europe. They have the money to live wherever they want. But for people like me, I don't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to live in Spain or any other country in Europe. I don't have that kind of money. So I have to work for a living. And if I can't work, I can't stay there at all. Now, one of the things that's important, especially for youngsters when they leave college and before they start university, they go travelling around Europe and they do all these different things. And that no longer exists for them. They can't do that. Taken away. So the rite of passage teenagers had before they went on to university has been removed. Of course they can still do this, but the difficulties involved in getting visas, etc., is prohibitive. And a lot of them don't bother anymore, you know? But why did we vote for Brexit? Well, you know, Brexit was supposed to solve immigration. It's gone up fourfold since the vote. Fourfold. There's more people going into the UK through small boats, etc., than there ever has been. It didn't work. Literally didn't work. The red tape that businesses now have to suffer in order to export their goods into the European community is unbelievable. I was listening to some guy the other morning on television saying that it's no longer feasible for him to do this. It's costing a fortune. And his business can't take it. The real reasons for Brexit were never, ever achieved. None of them. The freedom that we were supposed to have, you know? We may well have made a few trade deals with small countries, but we had a whole continent that we were trading with without, it was free trade. No tariffs, free trade. And we sabotaged ourselves. Self-sabotage, that's what we did. We decided to make ourselves poorer, less money, higher taxes, unemployment going up, all because of our stupidity to vote for Brexit. As a nation, we destroyed ourselves. That's crazy. What nation would do that? Britain. So today we have to try and sort out the mess somehow. And what do? Do we try and move closer to Europe? Do we try and move closer to America? Do we stay independent and don't get closer to anyone? Now, a lot of talk has been, especially in the media at the moment, about the current Labour government and their betrayal of Brexit, and the fact that they are trying to move closer to Europe and get closer European ties. What is the matter with that? Why can't we work with our nearest neighbour? Why is that such an issue for people? It doesn't make sense. As nations, we should be working together and trading together. We should be close, not far apart. Why is it a problem for little Englanders, as I call them, to move closer to our European neighbours? Why? And I think I know the reason. A lot of it is xenophobia, and a lot of it is racism, and it's not liking people of a foreign disposition. British people are famous for their ridiculous view of the world. We used to have the biggest empire. We are superior. We're better than these people. No, we're not. We are literally not. There are friends, they're the people we need to be close to. And then there's Donald Trump. And I know we're trying to steer a very, very narrow course between Europe and America. And if we go too far one side, we're going to lose support from the other. Do you know what? If we hadn't have got out of Europe, none of this would have happened. We were stronger in Europe. Absolutely, in all respects. Our voice now is a lone voice on the edge of the European continent. We have no influence whatsoever, none. The only reason we are the power we are is because we have nuclear weapons. That's it. Otherwise, we don't have any influence. We should not even have that permanent seat in the UN. Why would we? We are a lone voice now. That speaks volumes for what we've done as a nation. And of course, I'm saying we have done. At the time, I was living in the UK, but now, thankfully, I'm living in Australia. Now, I complain about Australia all the time, frequently. But it's given me a home, it's given me a very good job, and it's given me the rights that I could not have got in in Europe. So I have the rights here that I could never ever have obtained on the European continent now. That is insane. It's easier for me to live 10,000 miles away than what it is just across the water in France. That's balmy. That's just ludicrous. The whole thing is mad. And it gets my goat and it annoys me. And you know, this morning I've been riled up anyway, so I'm in one of those moods. Where does the future lie? Look, as I said, I don't live there anymore. I would ideally love to go back there and retire at some point. But is that going to happen? I don't know. I really don't know. I really do hope the Labour government do move closer to Europe. I really, really, really pray that happens. It's going to be difficult, and there are going to be those voices that tell us not to do it and shout, who can shout the loudest. And Farage is one of those who wants to be Prime Minister. God help the UK if he ever became Prime Minister. It would be a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. Just please don't ever vote for that man. He has caused so much damage along with Boris Johnson and that shoddy government. So yeah, I'd like to go back to Spain at some point and maybe settle down in my retirement and buy myself a home and not have the issues I have now. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. I mean, I'm lucky because I will have other options. I can go and live in Asia, for example. That's fine. I will be getting my Australian passport in about a year and a half, and that will then give me visa-free travel to China, for example. The swings and roundabouts, really, and I like Europe, I love Europe, and I do miss it, but if I can't go back and live there, then I do have those other options, unlike other British people. So I just don't know what's going to happen long term. It is scary, and I just hope eventually the UK does go back into the EU at some point, but probably way after I've gone. So that's my thoughts on Brexit for today. You know, I've spoken about it loads of times. It is what it is. It depresses me, it gets me down, but you know, at least I got a life outside of the UK, which many people are not going to have that option now. So whatever you're doing today, have a good one. I'm off because I've got to get ready for work, and yeah, look after yourselves. Ciao.